Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another Create With Me session. Today I will be making something called a scrap paper sampler pack. So pull out those scraps and your crafty bits and let's get crafting. So I heard about these paper scrap sampler sets from a Facebook group that I joined for a fellow YouTuber, and I'll link all that down below. But essentially all it is you create like a little flip book made up of your paper scraps. So if you're a big paper crafter, you have a bin probably of pieces of paper, vellum, scrapbook, watercolor paper, magazine cutouts, what have you. And if you let it sit for too long, it like multiplies by itself in its little tub and you end up drowning in paper. So paper scrap packs are a great way to kind of share little bits of your crafting materials with fellow crafters. So what you're seeing here is the first one that I made. So this is like my prototype. I went and I pulled out a bunch of different types of papers from my scrap bin and I made a little cover for it. And I was really like happy with it, sort of. It did have some flaws, like that little pocket that I made in the front where you can slide, tiny pieces of ephemera. I felt like it would be better in the back flap. So with this one that I'm making, I'm going to go ahead and try that a second time. Now I did originally film myself making this one, but it was just like really, how can I say it? I wasn't very confident in it just yet because I hadn't made one. So yeah, definitely going to do better this time around. Now on to the supplies. So I already went through my stash and pulled out some extra papers for this one. So you want to go ahead and do that. You're going to need some string or some baker's twine, yarn, embroidery floss, whatever you have lying around will work. Some binder clips to help hold down and pin down your scraps while you're working on them. A Crop-A-Dile. Now, if you don't have a Crop-A-Dile, don't feel like you have to go out and buy one just for this project. I mean, these things are really versatile, but like if you don't ever see yourself using one, a regular hole puncher works just fine. Anyway, you're also going to need a paper trimmer. This one I got a really long time ago from Target, and it's like a paper trimmer and a, what's that called? A score thingy. Aside from that, you also are going to need a piece of scrapbook paper. I just so happen to have like this thicker craft paper that I'm going to use as my cover. It can be whatever you have lying around. It doesn't have to be a brown piece of paper. Honestly, I wanted to use a manila folder, but I didn't have any in my stash, so yeah. Also, excuse my hand gestures. I kind of talked while filming this the first time around. But yeah, my apartment's like really echoey and I just wasn't a huge fan of the audio, so I decided to do a voiceover. So that's why you see like my hands gesturing quite a bit. But anywho, on to the fun part. So you're going to grab all of your paper scraps and just kind of make sure that they're all lined up at the bottom. This is going to make it a lot easier when you're binding your book. If you have them sticking out and stuff, it's just going to make it a little difficult because you'll have papers that aren't tied down very well. So once you have that, you're going to use those binder clips to secure your stack of papers. Now, this next part, you could actually be very precise and measure everything, but I'm not about that life. Like, I just like to make things. I don't really, I'm not really meticulous about it, especially because like the nature of these scrap packs, I like the real like rugged look, I guess. So yeah, so I just loosely measured how large I needed my cover to be. I folded it, and now I'm going to go ahead and just slice down the middle to make my two covers, the front and the back. Once those are done, the next step is to line up your paper scraps with the edge of your cover. So I'm going to work on the back first. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, I wanted to create that flap to hold my ephemera in the back versus the front. Just because with the other one I found when I opened it, because the flap was in the front, like everything just fell out. So I think this would probably be a better design. So I'm just using here a scoreboard to kind of loosely score where I want the edge of that flap to go. You know, if you don't have a scoreboard, don't feel like I said that you have to go out and buy them. I think a lot of times whenever I watch like craft videos, seeing people use specific tools like makes me feel like I need them, and you honestly don't need everything. So yeah, this is one of those things, if you have it, great. If you don't, a ruler will be just fine. So with that clean edge there, I'm folding it over and just making sure I like where my pieces lay. And the next step here, I'm just going to glue that pocket down using some double-sided tape. You could use a tape runner, glue, whatever you have around. Like I said, works just fine. So yeah, I struggle less with the tape runner, with the double-sided tape for a little bit, but I ended up getting it in the end. And I'm just going to apply that to the two edges, leaving the top of it open. With the flap created, now I just need to cut off the excess piece of cardstock at the edge there just to make sure that my front and my back cover are the same length. So now that everything's all trimmed down to size, I'm just going to layer or sandwich all of my pieces together, my front, back, and paper scraps. So using those binder clips, I'm going to hold that down so that I can mark where I want my holes to be when I use my Crop-A-Dile. So I'm first loosely going with the center and then doing two other holes, one on each side. You could, like I said, be meticulous and precise and just like measure the exact middle of your paper booklet, but like I said, I don't have time for that. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead now that I have it kind of measured, use my Crop-A-Dile to make those holes. Now Crop-A-Dile has two sizes. I went with the larger size, which I think is the edge that says inch on it. The first one that I made, I tried using the smaller hole and it just didn't work because it was too hard to get my baker's twine through the holes. So the larger the hole is better, but you don't want to make it too big. I don't have any real measurement sizes or lengths for the amount of yarn that you need. I just kind of made a strand that I thought was long enough, and that worked just fine. So once you have your yarn, you want to make sure you have your book, the front of your book facing you, and you're going to go ahead and pull that thread through the center hole. Once you have that threaded, you want to leave the tail end kind of hanging out there. You don't want to leave it too short. So flipping to the back, you're going to pull your thread through one of the other holes. It doesn't matter which, you could do left or right. I just so happen to start with the left. So you're going to, try your best to get it through. I found that with the baker's twine, like the more I tried, like the more the ends got frayed, so I just kind of trimmed them later on. Now you're going to go back to the front, use that same string, and you're going to go all the way across to the opposite hole. And once again, you should be looking at the front of your book at this point. So once you have that through, you're going to go ahead and flip the book and use the same thread that you were holding onto, and you're going to string it through the center loop. And now you're almost done. So this is the front of the book, and you should have those two strings coming through the center hole, and all that's left to do is just tie them together and attempt to make a nice bow. Yay! So all the hard stuff is done. Yeah, so your booklet is pretty much complete at this point. All that's left to do is just decorate the front however you like. You can put extra bits in that back pocket. Yeah, so the next part of this video is just going to be me playing around and decorating.